Well, if you live in California over this last year, you know there's been a lot of rain and snow, and I've been diving into what that means for water in California and how it's good and also bad, all the different pros and cons of picking up a large amount of precipitation. And one of the things that I've stumbled across over this last week that I'd never really thought about much before is hydropower and hydroelectricity in California. And I just thought I should know more about it, so we're just going to dive into Meteorology Insider here and look at how does hydropower work in California. And it turns out it makes up around 15% of our energy every single year, but then there's also some other benefits as well. So are you curious about how California generates clean energy? Apparently I am. Well, one of the ways is through hydropower. This post will explain the science behind how hydropower works, and I put specifically in California, but some of the sections about how hydropower works is true for hydropower anywhere in the country. I just usually focus my studies on California. So what is hydropower? Hydropower is a method of producing electricity by using moving water to turn turbines. California has a variety of hydropower facilities, including large dams and small run-of-the-river projects. Together, is that like a play on the word of run-of-the-mill? I don't know. Together, they can generate over 15,000 megawatts of electricity, enough to power millions of homes. Very interesting. So, yeah, that didn't really tell us too much information that we didn't know, but where does water come from? California's hydropower facilities depend on three sources of water: snowmelt, rainfall, and imported water. So, right off the bat, I kind of have a question there. Is the imported water would have come most likely from snowmelt or rainfall as well. So that's a little bit of a double dip right there. But that it does remind me that the snowmelt aspect, that one of the cool facts that I've learned this week is that you could actually think of the California Snowpack as our largest reservoir, because as it melts over the spring and summer months, it goes into our rivers. And then as it's going through our rivers, we have our hydropower facilities. It turns the turbines, generates some electricity, powers our home. So it's a cool aspect of how we're able to almost get two birds with one stone, where it's great for water supply, great for irrigation for farmers, for water for people, but then we can also generate electricity with it and then use that to power our homes and other things. So yeah, pretty cool. So snowmelt from the Sierra Nevada mountains is a significant source of water for hydropower in California. Snowpack works as a natural water storage system, gradually releasing water throughout the spring and summer. This water feeds into California's rivers and streams, providing a reliable source of water for hydropower generation. And this is going to be definitely significant this year, because the new reports came out just about 2 days ago saying that we have now seen the snowiest year on record for this year. There could be some questions as how reliable the data is going back all the way to 1950, but regardless, we're in the top 3 snowiest years ever. So with that, we're going to have a lot of water flowing down our rivers over the next few months, and that's going to be able to generate more hydropower. So that, I believe I already said that 15% of California's energy comes from hydropower. Well, in a dry year, that drops down to maybe 10%. And then on a year like this, where we've had a lot of rain and a lot of snow, that'll most likely be over 20%. So that number is flexible depending on how wet of a winter it has been. Rainfall is another essential source of water for hydropower facilities in California. The state's wet season typically runs from November to April. During this time, rainfall can quickly fill reservoirs and provide additional water for hydropower generation. So one thing I see here is rainfall can quickly fill reservoirs. And that's actually been one thing that we've had to deal with this year, is our reservoirs have been getting so full, and then there have been more big storms and more atmospheric rivers on the way. We've had more than 12 atmospheric rivers this year, that we've actually had to manage our reservoirs and let some water out, because there was so much new water coming in. So there's this very kind of intricate science behind water management in California, where you want to fill up those reservoirs, but you also don't want them to be so full that when a big storm comes in, it ends up leading to flooding. So that, I'd imagine that's a very difficult job, and there's a fair bit of forecasting that goes into that. Luckily, it's gotten easier as our weather forecasting has gotten better, especially over the last decade. So finally, imported water is another crucial source of water for hydropower facilities in California. The state imports water from the Colorado River and Northern California through the State Water Project. This imported water supplements California's natural water sources and ensures that hydropower facilities have a consistent water supply. And I could probably spend a whole post talking about how California uses water from the Colorado River and all the different infrastructure that's in place in order to make that happen, but that could go down quite a big tangent, so I'll save that for another time. So instead, let's just look at how does it work. So how does hydropower work? Once water is collected at a hydropower facility, it flows through pipes and into turbines. Turbines are typically large machines with blades that are turned by the force of moving water. As the blades turn, they generate electricity through a generator. The electricity is then sent to power transformers and distributed to homes and businesses. So there's some kind of gravity aspect going on here, where that's where you think about the river. It should be flat like this, but then you dam it up right here, so then the river is shaped like that. So then as that water falls down, it's able to turn some turbines, and then that turning of the turbines produces electricity, and then we use that to power our homes and businesses. So what else do hydropower facilities do? Besides generating electricity, hydropower facilities in California have several other critical functions. Many dams and reservoirs are used for flood control, preventing downstream areas from flooding during heavy rainfall. Hydropower facilities can also be used for water storage and supply, providing water for agriculture and urban use during times of drought. One thing that I've also seen coming up as I've been diving into California water this last week is the aspect that as the snowpack melts, and I mentioned it's a record snowpack right now, if it melts too quickly, it can actually lead to some pretty significant flooding. And that is a concern that I've heard numerous scientists talking about. That's where some of our dams provide another benefit. So it's not only good for water supply, producing electricity, but also for flood control. Instead of all of that snowmelt just rushing and flooding the Tulare Basin, some of that will be trapped behind dams, or at least will slow it down for a while. So are there any environmental impacts? So we just talked about some of the pros. I imagine this is going to talk about some of the cons. And first one that pops up into my mind is, fish like to go up rivers, so I don't know how they would do that if there's a dam. So while hydropower is a valuable source of clean energy, it does have environmental impacts. Dams and reservoirs can alter natural river systems, affecting fish and other wildlife. Additionally, hydropower facilities can impact water quality and contribute to greenhouse gas emissions through the decomposition of organic matter in reservoirs. So, yeah, I could see it impacting water quality, leading to some decomposition of organic matter, maybe because the water would be just kind of sitting there instead of flowing, so things like algae would be able to grow more easily. In terms of fish, yeah, that definitely makes a lot of sense. And I'd imagine that's why we don't see as many dams being built nowadays. I was looking at some of the list of some of the top dams, and I was surprised at how old they were. I was seeing dams going back to the 1930s, 1950s, a lot in the 1960s, and then not so many in recent decades. And I'd imagine there could be two aspects there. Maybe one is we already put up so many dams that there's not that many good sites. All the good sites have already been taken up, and it's maybe just not as cost effective to put up another one because they're very expensive to make. But then also the environmental aspect of it too. And there is that balance of priorities in California when it comes to water. You have to balance the environment, agriculture, and urban priorities. And I don't know the answers to how we do that. I imagine it's a case-by-case basis. So in conclusion, Hydropower is a vital part of California's energy mix. By harnessing the power of moving water, hydropower facilities provide reliable, clean energy to millions of people while also serving important functions like flood control and water supply. Whether you're interested in the science behind hydropower or its environmental impacts, it's clear that hydropower will continue to play a vital role in California's energy future. And I'd say it will definitely play a big role in our future this season because we've picked up a lot of rain and snow. And as that snow melts, we're going to have to do something with it. And it's just, I would say, cool that hydropower has so many different benefits. We did learn about some of the cons like environmental impacts, but it does have a lot of benefits. It's able to store up some of our water, so that's a source of our water supply. We can use that for irrigation, grow some crops with it. It also is generating electricity. That's, I'd say, the primary motive. But then it also can engage in flood control, which will be one of the important things we'll have to watch over the next couple of months as the record snowpack begins to melt. So I'd say I learned some new things about California hydropower. Hopefully you did too. And thanks for watching.